time, I am going to close public comment period. At this time, the only persons that will be able to speak are those on the commission. We may also ask specific questions of the applicant and staff if necessary. I'm going to start by asking if the applicant has anything that they would like to say after hearing public comment. I'm going to ask if you could try and limit it to a couple or several minutes. Six.
I'm going to try to keep my remark really short. I know it's late, so I'll just be brief if I can. So as a lawyer practicing land use and zoning law, I respect and value the rule of law. And so when we talk about law, you've got the Ohio General Assembly, they pass laws that permit the sale of fireworks. When we look at what communities are we able to locate in, we look at the zoning codes. And your zoning code does defines retail stores that primarily engage in selling merchandise for personal and household consumption and rendering services and sale of goods. There's no limitation on the type of product or who it's sold to. And a lot of the comments I'm hearing are more opposition to a use as opposed to zoning issues. In general, the city council who passes the law determines what uses are permitted. And there's a case law that would say that you can't deny a conditional use because you just oppose the use if it's permitted or conditionally permitted. So I just wanted to sort of give that backdrop. The second thing is that in the land use and zoning context, decisions have to be based upon evidence, and when it comes to traffic, it's pretty well established that traffic studies are the method by which we determine the impact of traffic. So a lot of people can come up and say there's sort of an assumption that this is going to be increased traffic, when what we do to try to figure that out is we actually gather data, we do traffic counts, we do the analysis, and that analysis was not created or made up by ban of fireworks. It was determined and negotiated in advance with the City of Columbus and the village traffic consultants. And so there is data that shows that this is not going to have a negative impact on traffic. And the way you measure that is, does it change the level of service? And our traffic study says that it does not change the level of service. There was a couple of little questions I wanted to answer about. Somebody made a comment about the trees behind the store. Those are actually on the adjacent property, so those would not be changed, or nobody's planning on removing any trees, mature trees behind the store. The question about the police officers, it's not relying on the village's police force. We would be hiring our own, at our own cost, officers to regulate during the times. So it's not going to be a drain on the city's resources. We would be paying for that. Let me see one other thing. Oh, I think there were some questions about deliveries. We're very comfortable that this space allows for sufficient room for deliveries, and that's really not a concern for that.
What? What did you say? I'm sorry.
I just said that we're comfortable that this space, which is operated as a grocery store before, provides sufficient room for delivery trucks.
You have a dock there, correct?
What's that?
You have a dock on the backside too. A dock.
A dock in the backside, right, specifically for trucks. I guess that was really all I had to offer. I didn't want to talk for too long, but I just wanted to sort of remind that how the zoning law works. It's really designed to decide in advance what uses are permitted, and then property owners can know then what areas to go to, and also that you operate more by districts. So you have a residential district, a commercial district, an industrial district, and within those districts, there's not a lot of discrimination between businesses. There's a commercial district. If you qualify as a retail use, and we do qualify as a retail use, then you would be permitted or conditionally permitted. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we need another comfort break, or do we want to start
Staff has a few things to talk about.
Pardon?
Staff has a few things to add at the end as well.
Do we need a comfort break? No?
No, if anybody, from here on out, now that it's a much smaller crowd, and just so, if anybody needs to, just go. I don't think anybody's gonna feel rude at that at this point, but we're not gonna judge if anybody has to get up for a minute, but let's keep this moving.
Okay, so just to remind folks, we have specific criteria for approval. And as was mentioned, not liking something is not a reason to deny conditional use. Defer to folks if they've got new questions of anybody at this point, or have thoughts. This is open discussion now.
Did staff want to rebuttal first, or?
Yes.
I think he had a couple questions, or yeah. Go for it.
I'm sorry, Brady, I'm just trying.
You're good.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. I'm listening to comments and giving this some more thought. And they answered a number of items that were brought by the folks out in the audience. One thing, I think we have a few conditions that we'll recommend have a few more here. Number 4, we would definitely like to see another special duty officer. And let me bring up my thing here, just going to show you real quick before I do the battery power.
Nope, you're done.
Will you stop, please, now? Actually, your time's over too. I'm just joking. And again, are we talking about just the 14 previous,
I think that, yeah, so I think the concern obviously is on the busiest days. One thing, traffic studies can't, due to the way they're designed and they're standardized and they collect empirical data, they do not collect on busy days. That's just fine. It's a design in nature and how they do the studies. So, however, it's a known unknown essentially, meaning they know it's going to be busier.
They hope it's going to be busier
on those days. We don't know to what extent that traffic effect is until we see it and we can gauge it at the store once it's operating. The same thing as when we open a new street or when we put the basketball court in. We don't know the effect of the traffic and the effects until we see it at mitigation, right? But in this case, we know fairly sure that something's going to happen there. And I think a big concern, people have fears, right? And I think some of them are justified, their concerns. Part of it is people going down or parking on Jordan or all that extra traffic. That can be eliminated. So, and that can be controlled. What I would suggest is we would add a second. We would add an officer right here. Right here-ish, to keep people from turning around and running down here and controlling, any of the overflow or confusion that undoubtedly will happen right after they open. Because the first year the store is open and it's new, and you do have regular customers who will learn year after year, time after time where to go. And most people prefer to go blind and polite and get into it and circulate around it. But to keep people from doing things they shouldn't be doing, whether parking illegally or racing through the neighborhood, we can have conditioning with Phantom to have the second officer out here. So they can have one here to help get people out. They can have one back here to keep people from going in who are not residents, right? We can control the right of way that way. We can give them permission to do that. They would commit to having a special duty officer out there to control it. And then we can assess if it's really a problem year after year. As part of the commitment, we can make adjustments. Council can make adjustments. The business can make adjustments. People can work together to make adjustments. So that would be a number 4 from the staff recommendation. A 5th recommendation, and I think Pamela's going to do this anyways, but you can condition it to ask for an agreement with the adjacent neighborhood owner, whether they're down the street, whether they're the church, whether they're, the Huntington Center, to address parking of the employees, right? I believe they said they're going to do anyway, so you might as well add it as a condition. The 6th recommendation I would make on this is, yes, we have a multilingual society out there, we have a heavy Somali, and we have a heavy Latino group, and I would say you can put signs in multiple languages, Somali and Spanish. So,
Somali as well.
right, that's what I'm saying, that's not hard to do. So, those are the three recommendations, just to try to keep it short and sweet, you know, look, I think we have a number of experts over here, I think, you know, you can trust in the grading of the merchandise, things are not gonna magically explode, they're in a controlled environment, they're not gonna go all over the place, it's not the way this product works, I think that's fairly safe to say. So, and they're gonna have their fire control, so, but I think you can make a reasonable decision and you have a good applicant who will work with you on that as far as how you go through and make your approval with conditions or however else this comes out this season. And so that's all I had to add unless there are other questions.
Thoughts?
Can I just pop in real quick on a procedural point? This is purely a recommending body, and so I deal with this a lot in cities is sort of how a motion is framed creates the opposite intent. So let's hypothetically say someone were to say, I move to approve this, and 3 people voted no. Sometimes in certain places what that imputes is a recommendation of disapproval. What I would suggest to you, and I think this is perfectly fine and legitimate, is that we get a majority vote, if we can, on a recommendation, whether it be I move to recommend disapproval to council. There is a second, we take a vote. If that fails, that does not mean you're recommending approval to council. So then the discussion would just continue, and then there would be another motion. And I think I know there's 5 voting members, if we can't get to a majority on any, then this has been a record that's been created, the concerns have been heard, and this just goes forward to council with no recommendation. So that'd be my 2 cents on it. Feel free, you know, take it or leave it.
Thank you. Randy, what do you think?
I have a question,
Okay.
Go for it.
and it's truly, I had no idea, so let me ask. So Minerva Park is a great neighborhood, we have lots of trees, and they're forever falling on our power lines, which are not all buried. I'm assuming that the fire suppression system probably needs some sort of electricity to do its thing. I could be wrong, I would love clarification on that. I also would like to know what are the risk mitigation plans for an extended power outage? If the power's gonna be out for a day, you guys not open because your fire system doesn't work. You have a backup generator so you don't need to rely on our power that gets knocked down by trees every other day. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we will have a permanent on-site backup generator at that location with an automatic transfer switch. So what that does is that bridges the gap the minute it notices there's a surge of power, kicks over the generator.
What's the usual time rating on that? Is it like a 24-hour generator? Eventually a generator dies, right?
If we can, we'll hook it up to a propane line on site, or otherwise I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a good answer. I'd rather it be the right answer than.
Yeah, that's better.
How long typically? I mean, is it a 24-hour? Any idea?
A lot of our locations are hooked up to natural gas too.
Okay,
So, and that's indefinite.
right.
We have to do regular tests on those generators. That's one of our checklists with the fire departments and our emergency management system to make sure that they're up and running all the time. Those all have to be documented and I've seen generators that we've had at some of our facilities run for 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
Only? Only 3 to 5 days? Just to do gas.
That's all we need.
Same question for water. Is that hooked up to
Oh, yeah.
city water? Or-
Yeah, I mean, we're controlling our system. Pretty much control the whole system.
Oh, this is more like an idea, suggestion.
Go for it.
Um,
I have the gavel. You can say whatever you want.
Maybe
You left.
move the mic over.
going down Jordan, going down Jordan Road, is there a yellow marking on the curb for no parking to kind of help litigate or mitigate some of that?
The village itself is, you know, that's our right of way, we control that, that's our bail way.
Streets can
Just
take
like-
that up.
Just like we said, if the need is to control right away, we can handle it, police and enforce it, right? The council can make ordinance, or we would put down signage that says no parking during these days. If there's any particular kind of things we can do to control it right away. So if we see there's a problem, it's the same discussion we had over at the basketball court, and we made the interconnection between the new neighborhood and the old neighborhood. People were afraid that things were going to go south. We said, we'll watch it, if something goes wrong, we see problems, and mitigate that for any number of needs, police included.
I heard a lot of people mention that they were concerned about the hours. Is there any discussion that we want to have about maybe limiting the hours as one of the conditions of use so that it's not open till 1 a.m. or thoughts?
Great thought, but a question. At some point, obviously, somebody has to decide if they want to try to recommend certain things. If I were to, hypothetical here.
Sure.
If I were to say, I recommend the approval with conditions, is that where we will start conditions, or would you like for us to continue to go through what we believe these conditions would be? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and that comes up quite a bit. So what you would do is, you could move to recommend subject to the conditions proposed in the staff report, and then there could be a second, and then a motion to add additional conditions, sorry.
Or we could go through this list and see who's likes this list and wants to add
You could do it
more.
either way, just, kind of go slowly, we make motions, we can hop in and add conditions if need be.
Okay. I mean, I think at some point, everybody is, I'm just gonna say this, everybody's got a thought in their head. So we can either stay here until midnight, him hawing around, or we can. So do you guys wanna, okay, so do you guys wanna talk about the conditions, or do you guys want to, does somebody wanna make a motion to move forward?
I mean, I would suggest hearing at least a little bit from everybody, at least those who are
Okay.
voting on sort of criteria so that we have something to justify your decision on.
Okay,
Well, it doesn't have to be in depth, I think we've all, it's very clear what the issues are, just need to create some kind of record for our recommendation.
I will start. I have an issue with the proposed use adversely impacting access traffic flow. In September, Phantom said multiple times that they are an anomaly, that their store is not like other retail stores. And that has to do with high sales and lower no sales periods. And the traffic study takes an average that does not account for the anomaly. And so I get it, it's the industry norm, it's the standard, it's how things are done, but this retailer is an anomaly. And so I have to discount the traffic study some. And so I think that there will be problems with traffic flow turning in and out and on Jordan and Park Lane. And that is what leads me to criteria number 5 about adversely affecting, and I see it being a safety issue with what I as a resident on Park Lane see when there is an accident or heavy traffic on Cleveland Avenue, which is folks saying, I'm gonna cut through and pop out somewhere in Westerville. And they drive too fast, and my kids play outside right around a corner, right around a turn. And it's dangerous when delivery vehicles do it, and it's dangerous when Uber drivers and food delivery do it. It's dangerous when sometimes a vehicle that transports people does it. Anything that adds the potential, anything that adds more traffic will affect the safety, might affect the safety, will affect the comfort and convenience of those folks on that street. And I get what the data says, but the data was collected in a manner that is not as accurate as I believe it should be. I also have questions about the prosperity and thinking about the folks who live closest to, and again, this is not something that data is going to bear out. This is something that you ask yourself. Would you, if you were looking to move to a neighborhood, if you were looking to buy your forever house, would you say you want the one 2 doors down from a fireworks store? And if not, then when you go to sell your house, are you not going to get as much as you would if it was? And for those reasons, they have not passed 2 out of 5. And that's where I am right now.
I kind of want to add to somebody, definitely, the traffic issue, I think, is, everybody's discussed, is like a very significant aspect. I still kind of have questions regarding the compatibility with adjacent areas. That, you know, we are totally surrounded by areas that this is not allowed. And I know maybe it was because we're a small community and we didn't think fast enough to change the rules. But yeah, we are a residential area. And like the one lady said, you know, neighborhood, residential, and commercial. The I stated you are selling products, but yet your products are not quite as compatible to the other products being sold on Cleveland Avenue because of all the extra regulations you have to do as well. So I still don't understand how, and it probably is the legalese that I don't get about the compatibility around the surrounding areas, but it's disallowed everywhere except for our little section.
Can I ask staff to
Yeah.
give an example of a proposed use that would clearly not be compatible with adjacent land use? If we get to block folks off and say, you are you, and you are you, and you are someone else, what is not compatible with adjacent use?
So, adjacent use would not be compatible with an adult store. You can clearly lay down some good conditions.
For what reason would that not be compatible?
Well,
if they were selling retail adult items?
So, that's not what I mean. So, if you have a strip club, okay, you can easily deny at that location, okay, if that wants to come in, it's not an issue. I believe that you should be able to, you know, if they wanted to, but again, we have to go through some reasons as to how this works. So, there's a lot of conditional uses that you're gonna have some trickiness with, okay? So dispensaries are a new one, you know, I know the village is a little more progressive and some people are really fans of it, just like they're fans of liquor stores. And it's interesting, you know, liquor stores are a given straightforward use here. And as a retailer, I can argue other issues, but that's the way it is.
So what threshold would make that incompatible?
Even with the dispensaries?
Sure.
Well, you
So I
can't be
think-
within 500 feet of a church, you're 500 feet of a church,
Well,
and you're
that's-
also
and
next to
again,
the thing.
They have certain regulations.
Yeah, it's not gonna
So
happen.
putting, they're not there because of that specific regulation, but if in general, if you're looking for a conditional use neighborhood commercial somewhere along Cleveland Avenue, where it may be the burden of what the state says you can and can't be, they have to get over that first, just like they have to get over the state fire marshal's, you know, safety requirements. And they've met that, you know, from a distance radius standpoint according to those requirements, so they can locate there, okay? And so now then it gets to, you know, the conditional use. And I would say that, you know, generally speaking, you've got a dispensary, you can say, okay, there's certain things with the dispensary that you may be able to hang your hat on, and it's just hypothetical, this is not what we're analyzing tonight.
Right.
I'm just trying to understand. Since it's still controlled substances from the federal standpoint, you can easily hang your hat on that and say, that one, you know, we don't want you here for those reasons. There's definitely evidence, you know, that you can draw from that particular issue, okay? And those are just, that's off the top of my head. That one's fairly easy and straightforward. You know, but there are potentially other things that out there that you know, may have issues with. For example, if someone came in here and said, hey, we're gonna have, this is, you know, just a little made up, but I wanna sell a lot of propane tanks here, or I wanna sell a lot of, you know, something that's, in their case, their stuff burns. That stuff explodes, really can explode, right? And so there can be, depending on what store, what chemical is sold, it might be a retail chemical of some type, but it may have a lot more caustic effects through fire or explosion, you know, on the surrounding area that you can deny that a lot more easily than you can, you know, deny their stuff, as an example. So it's one of those things, I think there are examples out there, but I think that this is good, we're getting to you know, a rare thing. The dispensary is also going to be different. You're definitely going to have a lot of traffic, as we've seen with a lot of the ones that have opened up, you know, and I think traffic goes to far exceeds what they're looking at here. You know, I tend to agree with Councilman Wolf's assessment, you know, this is not a hardcore issue here from the standpoint of traffic mitigation. We can get there from a conditional approval, as we would with other particular uses. And it's not the use. I have to reiterate that as, Mr. Funk was saying. A lot of people don't like fireworks, so a lot of people don't like liquor or weed or whatever. It's not how people use them in this particular case. It's the usage from a retail standpoint of this location. They're selling it. How the general public goes and uses it responsibly or irresponsibly is not this commission's concern. If that's the concern, your council has the ability to further restrict firework usage, and the proper avenue for the public is to speak to council and change things. It's been legal here for 3 years.
I'm asking about the adjacent land use.
Right.
And if there is a specific legal litmus test to know whether it is a compatible.
There isn't. These are, the purpose of the multi-factor test is to provide a balancing test. I think Eric gave some fairly compelling examples of that. If something's compelled by, or prohibited by federal law or controlled substance, that would say nowhere in any place in our neighborhood commercial could that be compatible to an adjacent use and something's federally banned. But that is just one factor of many.
Okay. Terry, does that help at all?
Yeah, so because basically it's because state law says it's okay, even in the cities, what is adjacent to us, state supersedes.
Our zoning says at the end of the day, retail sales are okay. It's a retail product, and therefore they can have retail sales.
Is it
But if it was retail sale of weed or of propane,
Right.
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
And is it fair to say this now, just while we're talking about it? Council was fully aware and chose not to change our code.
That was a 3-meeting discussion.
That was a 3-meeting discussion, and council agreed or disagreed. It went through the whole process, and council chose not to ban fireworks in the village.
Right.
Was that something that was voted on, or was that something that was just discussed and never led to?
You had to bring legislation to the table to ban it. They chose not to bring legislation to the table to ban it.
I drafted it.
And it was
just was discussed.
It was discussed because when the chief of police brought it to our attention, and it was discussed from council, and it was decided that they did not want to ban it. So this is, again, I'm just telling you guys because you're here, and I know it's been brought up 3 or 4 times. It was discussed, they chose not to.
What was the use or the sell?
We're just talking about, somebody asked earlier whether or not.
State law was changed several years ago to, it used to be that Ohioans could not ignite fireworks. State law was changed, and state law gave municipalities the ability, which we still have, you have it at any time, to further restrict from the days specifically that state law says you can fire off fireworks. Municipalities can further restrict those days all the way down to 0. Our council was presented with that. Our previous council was presented with that option and chose not to act on it. We're all good. Okay.
And I don't want to go down the sidebar lane, but do citizens have the ability to petition to ban that?
Well, I think citizens attempted to do that.
No, to ban the firing.
Setting it off of.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There's not going to be any like home rule jargon stuff?
No.
thinking?
No, the state law, they would rely on the state law itself, which says a municipality can drop it down to 0. That can happen at any point.
Okay. Terry, you were talking and having questions.
That was mainly because everything else it is the concern about the extra traffic, and I think, we would definitely need extra policing to control for the traffic. And like Rainey said, I'd like to see, more of the hours kind of compatible to our other aspects in the zoning that we talk about, noise ordinances and stuff, kind of compatible within that realm as well.
And just to add on that, I'm listening to the residents who live there, and people aren't gonna have a fireworks show in the parking lot, but it'll be a parking lot full of people, and if you're trying to put your babies out at 10 o'clock, and there's 63 cars in the parking lot, that's real. And if we could find some way to find a balance there, I think that it would be appropriate.
Beth, thoughts?
Well, the issue, I know traffic came up a lot, and I think no matter what business goes in there, we're gonna have increased traffic. And I think there's a bigger problem that hasn't been addressed. That this is really, just pulling it right up and making it development discussion. So that's with traffic. The other thing is I commend Fandom Fireworks for all their safety precautions that they've gone through to protect their building and all of that. That is good as a resident to know that they've, jumping through all these extra hoops to make their building as safe as possible. And I think I keep coming back to the issue of it being, and so with all those safety precautions. So it's, to me, that is a red flag of this is not a benign use. When we sit here and say, oh, it's retail and we're just selling stuff and, people can cut, it's not a benign use because you have to go through all these extra things to do to protect the neighborhood and the people coming in and that, so that's a thought. And the other thought is that because it's in such an urban setting, a metropolitan setting, completely surrounded, and I'm sure they have studies on how many people they're going to serve, and that's why they're there. But it doesn't look like a lot of their other facilities are on bus lines, and this is on a bus line. And so now we have access, I can get in my car and I can drive. I think one of the residents said, you can drive. You have to take extra effort to go somewhere, to drive someplace, to get it, you put it in your little car and you drive back home. Now, if I'm an OSU student and I can get on a bus and I can go across town and I can buy some fireworks and I get my bag of fireworks and I can climb on that bus and I'm zipping all around town with a bag of fireworks, and I know that isn't any of these little rules here, but I just have this picture in my mind that it is increasing accessibility, and that doesn't fall under, for me, that isn't falling under, like, maybe, is that comfort or
General
that
welfare?
public health and safety? I mean, I think it's just putting more fireworks out there in our immediate surrounding area because it's, the population density is so much higher here than in Kirksville or, their other locations. That's fine.
Tommy?
I have challenges with the traffic. I think that mine comes from experience of a traffic study on Farview, where it was told everything was going to be perfect and hunky-dory, and that's where we have school systems, where we have our schools. And it was not great, and it still kind of stinks, to be honest. So when I hear a traffic study and I get that there's statistics, that I'm not a traffic engineer, I have doubts. And that affects me on that. And then my heart, and I just keep putting myself in the resident that's directly behind, and that impacts me in a way that I feel that it would affect my comfort level. And even if it's just one resident, I have reservations on that.
And I'll add on to that, Tommy. If we can add, it's going to be confusing, if we can add a condition to address the concern. Traffic, I do hear a lot of traffic concerns, but we can add mitigation. We can't, I don't know how we can mitigate the people who it's going to impact their home value. It's going to impact their day-to-day life. Like, I don't know what condition we can add to address that concern.
Well, first, it's not necessarily impact the home value, because I want to be careful with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Definitively, the value of that ground has gone up to where it was, to 1.4 million, plus whatever the auditor adds to it once they make improvements. The school district definitively benefits from that valuation increase from the commercial ground. Okay? Now, how it affects the surrounding residents, is to be determined, because it's really market-based, right? And so, you know, do people love the River Park? And it's something we can't hypothetically
Right, the
speak
unknown
to.
unknown,
This is not a smokestack going up right next to the house to where you've got soot falling on, you know? It's at the end of the day a retail store.
Right.
I just want to point that out. There's a
I'll,
lot
I'll,
on top of that.
I'll rephrase, I
Right.
phrased it badly. Regardless of the amount of money you can sell the house for, there are going to be people who look at its location and say, nope. So that's what I meant, but you're right, monetarily, there will be someone to come along and maybe buy it, I get that. But nonetheless, it does impact them living on it and their quality of life, and I don't know how to mitigate that with conditions of use.
The only way to do that is we have to go back in time and rezone the whole place and start building and do different things, and we can't do that, right? You've got a heavy commercial 30,000 a day corridor of vehicles. I mean,
Understood, and I'm not trying to say that that's a make or break, I'm asking for ideas on how we can improve that, or is that just one person?
And that, I mean, in all honesty, that.
It's a real conversation.
Right, and I think that the thing that people have to realize is that person that lives directly behind it, and this is not a bash or anything, no matter what goes in there, they're going to be affected. So it may be affected in a different way. No one has a crystal ball, and I'm not implying that the next people are gonna be worse. I'm saying no matter what goes in there, they've already said GFS was not good neighbors. As most of you know, I'm also a realtor. I get a lot of what you said. And I do think that there's people that pull in, they see GFS in that first house, they're done. They're not gonna buy that house. I mean, I'm just saying that's the case. I don't think it matters that it's Phantom Fireworks, GFS, or a nice hair salon. A lot of people don't wanna live there. I am one that I'm not gonna go talk for 30 minutes. First off, I will start by saying I am not gonna have a popular opinion here. I have obviously worked on this for over a year. I have looked at every different thing. I took the time out to go out to other locations and to talk to people and to do all of that. I wanted to experience the traffic. I wanted pictures of the parking lot. I wanted people to go inside because I didn't want to just rely on my personal opinions as well. And I have gone out, so other people as well as myself. And I did think that that was very important. I'm glad I did do it because it eased my mind 1,000,000%. I don't live my life in fear. I'm never gonna live my life in fear. So anything can happen at any given time. That's neither here nor there. Everybody's feelings are their feelings, and I'm not judging that. Just because I choose to live my life that way, that's fine. We talk about traffic. I live 3 houses down. Am I concerned about traffic? 5 to 7, 12 days, not really. I guess I'll turn right. My mom lives left. I come to work here every single day. I turn left probably, how many times did I drive here today? 4. So I turn left. There have been days that I personally have turned right to go to the pool. It just is what it is. I'm not gonna let it affect my day. I'm gonna move on. Thinking that our road is gonna be blocked and you're not gonna be able to get fire and things like that, I'm just gonna say it this way. If a fire truck needs through, that's why they have the things on the front of their cars. They're gonna get through. I'm not gonna I don't know what that's called, fear monger. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna do it, and it's not gonna benefit me, and it's not gonna benefit anybody else. Again, everybody's feelings are their feelings, and I'm not judging them. But talking about the traffic, again, I can't wrap my head around that. I have been inconvenienced before. The school, I do not disagree with you. I passed it today. It is backed up. Nobody's gonna like this comment, so I apologize in advance. I don't think a traffic study is worth the paper it's written on. I guess it's got great information, this and that, and I'm not saying that, but it's only as good as the information that you're using. That's why I wanted to physically go out there and see it. And I've been to Kirkersville, I've done all of that, so that was different. But I just kind of wanted to see current day and age. The other thing that I'm gonna point out, and this is maybe my ignorance, and I will be the first to admit that, fireworks aren't cheap. I'm not understanding why, I don't know, I guess, I know people in my household that spent a couple $100s on them, and they didn't buy much. So I just don't see people riding the CODA bus, driving down here to spend X amount of dollars on fireworks. Call me crazy, but I don't see some of these things. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, not saying it doesn't happen, but I just don't see some of the things that have come up tonight as being something that, that I'm super concerned about. Again, I mapped it last night, 350 feet, not as close as they are, 350 feet. I personally don't think it's going to affect my safety, my everyday life, my everything. And the one thing that I will point out, just because again, I have tried to keep an extremely open mind. I walked in here tonight knowing that this was going to happen, and this is not my first rodeo of pitchforks. I've been through it multiple times, Shelter House being one of them. We ended up okay. So I want to thank Brian, because Brian, you're the only person that came up in here and actually, it's difficult to come in here when you know you're coming in here with a group of people that are upset about something. So I applaud you for coming in here, and even if you don't agree with them, that's fine. And I do thank every single person that is in here that did make comments, but it does take a little bit more to be the person that doesn't agree. And I will also say this. As council, for the last several years, we have talked to Eric about how do we get better commercial? How do we get better commercial? We get Phantom Fireworks that comes in and wants to be a good neighbor and wants to be in our neighborhood, and this is where we turn. So I feel like GFS was, I did not notice them as not a good neighbor, to be honest, because I could peek my head in the door, and he used to make fun of me because I walked around there all the time. Anyways, I would peek my head in the door and say, get this parking lot cleaned up. And he would laugh and be like, on it. And within 24 hours, he would have it done. He would have a group of people, and I never had issues with that. You guys introduced yourself immediately right off the rip, which you guys did not have to do, and that's what started this whole headache. But honestly, your guys' wanting to be a good neighbor, whether people want to agree with it or not, you guys reached out to us, and here we are. So again, I applaud you guys for reaching out to us and trying to come in and get this in front of everybody before you did have the pitchforks and all that kind of stuff. So I could keep going in circles, but again, I don't have the huge issues that everybody, that said, we have talked about internally the conditions. Eric is extremely smart, got all of these conditions, but not without, he has talked to our chief of police multiple occasions. I was not part of those conversations. We have talked about this. You guys knew, darting across, the people that are darting across, the couple comments that were made about that is completely true. I know multiple people that have been hit in that intersection. You guys are gonna have a conversation with Yasmin, or somebody's going to, because that also is not an exaggeration. They park in yours, they dart across in those semis, and you guys will have some issues. You will have to get those resolved, because they use your parking lot to back them in. I don't think you guys are gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a problem with them during busy times.
I want to jump in and
Go
stop
for
you
it.
from your
I'm done.
spiral.
No, I'm done.
No, I was trying to save you from yourself. No, thank you for helping me reframe that.
Perfect.
Because I wanted truly to know how else to look at that outside of the frame I had in my head, so thank you. But I do agree that regardless, there's going to be a negative as a business, and that helps me think of it that way. To your point, fandom has come in, you guys have answered all of our questions, you have shown up, you have stayed here until almost midnight, you've listened to all of our comments, and that is absolutely appreciated. The traffic study, we got an F already. I don't mean to sound crass, I'm just tired, but if we're already doing that badly, it doesn't matter who goes in there. Yes, it's going to get worse, but worse on top of already bad. Let's maybe address the already bad and see what we can do. And if you guys are willing to hire police officers to help direct traffic that aren't our police officers taking away from our village police officers, whatever, I'm going to then great. If you're willing to add the extra police officer that we asked for as a condition to keep Jordan Road safe, great. That's hopefully going to help you guys have maybe 1 or 2 weeks a year where you actually have someone directing traffic so you can turn left for once to get to your mom's house or the school. I mean, I think that it's doable with conditions. I just want to make sure that we have talked through all of the concerns, done our due diligence to put in the conditions we think are going to be needed. I do still think the hours restriction is reasonable.
I think it'd be entirely reasonable if you would ask the applicant.
9 to 10, Monday through Sunday through whatever, and then 11 o'clock on the weekends. And 9 to 9 is typical, but during that week, can we do something like that? 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then like on Friday, Saturday, close at 11?
For the busier periods,
For the busier periods, and then 9 to 9 is normal.
you make an ordinance, we will. Or if it's part of the permit, yes.
There's your answer.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
If you formalize it, yes.
And I just made those numbers up, I don't know, maybe other people want 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Maybe they want.
What are quiet hours for the village? It's 10, right?
So we are working on a noise ordinance. Jesse is currently working on that to where the weekends are 11 and weeknights are 10. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
So I think it would be in line with.
That's where I came up with those numbers. I didn't just pull them from the sky.
So where are we? I'm lost. Are we at?
I think we want to let JP have a couple seconds, and then we want, if we all have to get put on the spot, you have to too.
You brought snacks or left.
Yeah, you brought snacks, I'm good. Takes the longest you need.
This is a lot of information to process so quickly. And it takes time, I'm sorry, I can't just wing, oh my goodness. I can't just.
Hey, we all had to just,
It's 11:30 at night.
I think if we do have an ordinance that at 11 o'clock, people can't have, loud things going on, then it would only seem to go in line with, that. I think that's honestly fair.
you have your own. Problems, questions, concerns?
My heart goes out to the people who are on Jordan and are affected and have personal feelings for it. On paper, even reading the zoning regulations and everything, on paper, I feel like part of me feels 50-50 in that, like, I understand the concerns and everything, but I also understand that the requirements are met, even on paper. Even if people have very strong feelings against it, it still does make sense on paper. Even if fireworks aren't a part of our suggested lifestyles or what we want out of the neighborhood. I think bluntly speaking, the emotional aspect of it doesn't necessarily give enough. If we're going to say, like, if it comes down to, like, legal, it doesn't have enough legal gravitas to say, like, no to any of this, unfortunately. And I say that having taken in everybody's testimonies and everything, and the emotions, I understand that. But I also agree with what was just said about no matter who goes in there, there's going to be problems just because that intersection is just, it's not designed that well.
Right.
So it's always going to be a problem. EMS, fire services, emergency services is not a problem, I'll tell you that. My husband is the CEO of the National Registry of EMTs. They certify EMTs around the nation. And they're based here in Columbus. If they got to get to your house, they will go through people's yards, they will go through business. They do not play. They know that time is life. That is their code. If they got to get through, they will get through. If they got to park because they're semis, they'll grab their gear and they'll run to your house. So I hope that gives some kind of, it's not a satisfying answer, but it is a reality if in fact that does happen. Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, this is definitely,
Not what you signed up for?
well, no, it's a deep thought. It's gonna take a little while to like process it all.
Yeah.
But my immediate feeling is kind of what I just expressed. And unfortunately, some of you might disagree, but that's what that is.
I mean, I will say that everything that we've brought up, you have either had an answer for, you've been well prepared, or you're willing to work with us on it. That matters. Wanting to be a good neighbor, coming in and doing the annual less than salary pay, what do we need to do to change for the next year? Those are all things that we often do, and those are of value.
I think maybe what would be cleaner from a process standpoint is sort of gauging from the conversation. Eric's typing up what I believe are the 3 new conditions that we sort of added on here to Eric, which the first was
I have 4.
You have 4, okay, we have adding the additional officer, just past what would be the sole entrance, or entrance on Jordan, during peak season. The second is to address employee parking through some type of lease agreement or whatever cooperative agreement with some other entity, and then I had hours of operation.
Okay, I'm wrong because mine is actually a village thing. The village thing would be to put multi-language signs.
That's
That would
right.
be,
And that
that
would
would be
be
an us
fine.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to do
On their
that.
side, they have control of their site where they have no access. That's what I was referring to, so on their site itself.
So that's
Question about the employee parking, that would just be during peak.
correct.
Correct. Yes, sorry, yes. During peak season, and then,
And you're going to define what peak season is.
yes, and I would go with what Eric had put, 15 days prior to July 4th each year.
That's something.
And then ORC actually states that you have to have someone in the building 14 days before and 2 days after. Is that accurate? And I'm only saying that in case you guys didn't know. Inside the store?
For the security requirement?
Yes.
Yeah, 2 days, 14 days before and 1 or 2 days after.
So this would be in addition to that. They would actually have a person in the store and then the officers outside.
For the record, we usually have multiple.
I think Kirkersville usually has 2 inside the store. 3? That's different now.
And then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, just going off what the commission was saying, is the operating hours as a condition would be 9 to 9.
I did 9 to 10
Oh, yeah.
Sunday through, what did,
9 to 9 throughout the
Off-season,
year.
yes.
During peak season, it was 9 to 10 on weekdays, 9 to 11 on Friday and Saturday.
yes. I mean, that's what I have written. I don't know if anybody agrees. That's just what I wrote.
Yeah. And so if that is the case, then it's all certainly up to you, I'm trying to keep it clean. Then if you were, either someone could make it, however you want to motion to disapprove or recommend disapproval. If that fails, someone then could bring a motion to recommend, subject to conditions, or someone can bring a motion to recommend approval subject to the conditions.
I'm gonna move to recommend disapproval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have,
Before you vote, can I just add one sort of question, I guess, or request? It's really just the 3 days before the 4th, or July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
sorry, we have a motion on the floor, so we're gonna vote on the motion.
Oh, okay, I had my hand up before you did. I just wanted to see if there's a way that we can have it be 11 on those 4 days.
Well, let's see on the motion.
Regardless of what day of the week it was.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That makes sense.
We'll see.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, so there's a motion to disapprove on the floor and second. A yes vote to this recommends disapproval to council. A no vote sort of leaves the question here in front of you for perhaps a second motion to recommend subject to conditions. So, feel free to take a vote.
Carrie?
I would vote for, say again which one.
And right now, the motion is to recommend disapproval, so yes recommends disapproval.
I'm voting yes.
Beth?
I vote yes.
Tommy?
I vote yes.
Mayor?
No.
And I vote yes. So, the motion to recommend disapproval to council passes. Per code, I will draft up a letter conveying summarizing our discussion and conveying that to council. Once again, council has the ultimate decision on this, with instructions that they take a look at our recommendations. Is there any other business before the commission?
No.
Seeing none, we're adjourned.